wavelength, link, I don't know. Hi, hello, my name is Jade and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. In today's video, I want to talk about long distance, and kind of like how to deal with it, like how to handle it, kind of like in that realm. You can pick and choose what you want to take from this and what you don't. I don't necessarily want to say how you deal with it, but like just, I want to talk about long distance. Because, as you know, or most of you know, I'm a military spouse. I've been married to my husband for 3 years, and I was with him for a year before we got married, and that whole time he's been in the military. The first year of our relationship was spent long distance, and then after we got engaged and married, it was spent even more long distance. Getting married did not stop it from being long distance. It cut a little bit in half, but not all of it. I don't want to say I'm an expert, because I'm not. There's definitely things that I don't do well, and there's things that other people do well. But it makes me really sad when I hear people say, oh, I could never do long distance, or if my partner were to move away, we'd have to break up because long distance is too hard. Long distance isn't too hard. It's just more work than not being long distance. So that's why I want to talk about it. There's a lot of videos or just advice out there saying a lot of different things. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about the advice that I've seen, but I also want to give kind of my own advice, or like my own 2 cents on it. I don't exactly know what this video is, because I don't want to say it's how to deal with it, because I don't think everything that I do will work for you, or I don't even think that I know everything perfectly. Every time I hear someone talk about advice for long distance, they always say, don't stop living your life when your partner is gone. And that's true. That was something that took me a long time to work on, because my thought process is, well, my life isn't going anywhere because my partner's not here. But that's not true. You can't stop your life because your partner's not here. So you still have to get out and do things. You know, you need to do things, like fun things. Like that was my big thing when we first were dealing with long distance. Is like, I didn't want to do anything fun while my husband was gone because it didn't feel right. I thought that I had to be sad and I had to just do like nothing because I couldn't do anything fun while he was gone. But that's not true. And like I said, it took me a little bit to figure that out. Like, it took me a decent time to figure out that I'm allowed to still have fun even if he's not home and even if I'm sad. But on the flip side to that is your partner's allowed to have fun when they're, like, not with you, like when they're far away. So I kind of am going to relate this back to being a military spouse, because that is the situation I'm in, even though this is definitely not my first long distance relationship, but this is what I've dealt with the most. So when my husband is on debts, we call them debts or detachments, he is leaving for work. He's not leaving because he wants to. He's leaving for work. And in the beginning of our relationship, I found it hard when he would go out and do fun things after work, because my thought process was, after work, we're just going to talk the whole time. You know, we're going to be on the phone, because that's what I do. I stopped living my life because I was waiting to be with him. So that's what I just assumed he would do. But that's not right. They deserve to go out and do something fun. The only reason they're there is because they have to work. Why not enjoy the little bit of time they have? And you know, sometimes they go somewhere that they've never been before, or they're with people that they normally wouldn't be around back home, so they deserve to go do fun things. And depending on where they are, they might have never been there before. So again, they deserve to go, you know, live their life. They're already miserable enough because they're, you know, on a debt, they're working, and they're not home. Like, at least my husband, he gets really sad when he has to leave. Like, he's like, dang, I just want to be at home. You know, that's where I'm happy. So might as well enjoy, you know, what they can while they're out. So I guess that's like the first advice I have is don't stop living your life when they're gone. Enjoy it. and be okay with them enjoying theirs too. Okay, 2, I guess. I know everyone says get a hobby. Get a hobby, get a hobby, get a hobby. This one was really hard for me to find. I found it so hard to find a hobby because I was a workaholic before I got married to my husband. So I didn't have a hobby. I don't think I've ever really had a hobby. Maybe when I was younger, I read a lot. Not as much as I do now, but I used to read a lot when I was younger. And I was part of a theater club. But I didn't get to do those like long term. So by the time I became an adult, I was working 2 full-time jobs. I was going to school full-time, so I really didn't have a hobby. And then I got married. I still didn't have a hobby. I was still working a lot. And then I left my job because of a lot of things. My mental health was not okay, and the people were treating me awfully, and my health started declining. So I was kind of forced to find a hobby. Not gonna lie, I still struggle with keeping hobbies because I feel like you can have more than one. Sometimes one is kind of boring. But yeah, it's important to find a hobby. I picked up crochet. I've been crocheting for a few years now. I love crocheting. That is my hobby. I also am learning how to knit right now, and I've been doing that for a while. I haven't made anything full yet. And I read. I listen to books because, I can't read the physical copy, but I listen to them, and that takes up a lot of my day. I also do YouTube, and I find this as a fun hobby. I dye hair. I don't know if I'd call hair dyeing a hobby, but YouTube, crochet, knit, and reading is all hobbies. So I found my hobbies. I definitely do want to do more. I want to pick up different hobbies because I get bored with them sometimes, and especially with my crochet. I don't have the best quality yarn, so crocheting is kind of not always fun when you don't have the right type of yarn to crochet what you want to crochet. But it took me years to find that, and I think that it's kind of important that you find a hobby, but also for some people like me, finding a hobby is kind of hard. Just start trying things. Like, it took me a long time to figure out that I like crochet. I just kept throwing stuff at myself, like try this, try that, like try this. I tried painting for a little bit. That didn't go anywhere because I'm really hard on myself, and I feel like I'm not a creative person, so when I'm trying to paint something, I'm like, I have no idea what to paint. I feel like I need to be told. So I stopped painting. Honestly, I didn't even really let myself pick it up. But you could try that, Reading is always good. I do that. There's so many different things out there. Look up videos of like different types of hobbies, or I don't know, if you watch TikTok, there's a lot of hobby stuff on there, or Pinterest. You can find hobbies on Pinterest, or just Google. I think something will call to you, and that'll like help you find a hobby if you have a hard time finding a hobby. Like, that's how I found crochet. It kind of called to me. My other issue with hobbies is I don't like not being good at something. So if I try it the first few times and I'm not good at it, I will drop it. I will drop it and forget about it for a long time, and then I'll come back to it. That's how I was with crochet. When I first started crocheting, I couldn't figure it out, so I stopped crocheting, and I stopped for months. And then I picked it up again, and then I started crocheting a lot. And now I really enjoy crocheting. And that's also how knitting happened for me, but in less time. Like, I tried knitting around Christmas time, and I did really, really bad. And then the end of January, I picked it up again, and now I'm knitting. So give yourself time and energy to let yourself find hobbies. Or if you have hobbies that you enjoy doing already, do those more often, because that's also really important. Number 3. This is kind of like number 2, but just do stuff. Don't just sit around. Don't let yourself think. You gotta do stuff. I guess this is like 1 and 2, because like if you just let yourself sit around, it's gonna eat at you. You're gonna be a lot more sad. But on top of that, give yourself time to be sad, because being away from your partner sucks. It sucks. Especially if like they can't talk to you. Like, my husband was just on the boat for a few weeks, and for like 2 weeks I couldn't talk to him, which that really sucks. But give yourself time to be sad. I have put a limit on my sad. I'm only allowed to be sad and do nothing for 3 days. 3 days is the max. There has been times where I have gone over that, and that's just because I'm dealing with other mental things. But I think it's really important that you set up a limit. Like, because you need to feel those feelings. You can't push them away. That's not healthy. But you also can't let them control your life, I guess, is kind of the word that I'm looking for. You can't let them stop you from living your life. Because if you give them the chance, they will. They will just completely take over. And you will be sad the whole time, and you will not do anything, and it'll be miserable. And I feel like that kind of drags it out. So, number 3 is give yourself time to feel your feelings, but don't give it too much time that it takes over. Number 5. A lot of people also say have friends, have a community. I have always really, really struggled with this. I still continue to struggle with this. I have like 3 friends that I can think of on the top of my head, and I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I can't call any of them. I know that at least 2 of them will pick up the phone if I do call them, but just the way that I am when it comes to people and how I'm really worried to open up to them, that's what holds me back. But I think it's really important to have a support system. My support system happens to be my husband, but I see so many other people who have their family. Like, that's great. They have friends, and I think as someone who doesn't feel like they have a support system all the time, it definitely feels so much better when you do have a support system. So I encourage you to find that support system and not be like me and isolate yourself from other people, because I promise you, it makes this a lot harder. And number 6, I think we're on. Who knows? I mean, I think I'm at 4. I don't know. Who cares about the number at this point? I feel like this one should be number 1. I'm not putting these in order of which one's the most important or whatnot, but communication. Communication is so big when it comes to long distance. Honestly, communication is so big when it comes to relationships in general, but definitely when you are long distance, the communication is so important. So important, because that's all you have. And sometimes you don't even have that. But you guys need to get on the same wavelength and link. But yeah, you guys need to be on like the same tier if you like are doing long distance. Communication is so important. My husband, like I said, my husband and I have been together for 4 years, and I promise you that our communication in the beginning of our relationship is not as good as it is now. Our communication has only gotten better and better and better throughout the years. I feel like our communication is great right now, but you know what? Maybe in a few years I'm going to look back on this video and be like, Jade, you have no idea, it gets even better. So communication is so big, especially since that's the only thing you guys probably will have. But communication is hard. You guys are, like, you need to be willing to be open. And being open is hard for some people. You guys need to be willing to hear each other out. You need to realize that sometimes we don't talk the same. Like, I'm a very emotional person. My husband is not a very emotional person. He's a very logic-oriented person, and I'm very, my feelings are this, so I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna go with my feelings. So sometimes it's really hard to balance those out if you guys aren't seeing, like, sometimes I feel like people don't see that the other person is different. I don't know how to say this really well, but like, if you think that your partner is talking more emotionally and you don't see that that's not how they talk, it's not gonna, your communication is gonna be bad. So you both have to be more open to meeting each other halfway, kind of, like, over-explaining yourself or under-explaining yourself. I know that this is a hard thing for males, or at least that's what I've heard. It's like when I talk to my husband, he's like, sometimes it's really hard for me to communicate on your level because I don't want to say I'm more emotional, but like I put more emotion in my communicating than he does. So he's definitely told me that that's a little harder for him, and I think that is a conversation you guys need to have. If you don't know your type of communication, it's probably something important that you need to figure out. And then your partner should do the same. And then you guys need to find ways to talk. When we were struggling with communicating, especially when we were long distance, I got a couples book of prompts to write and talk about each other. It's supposed to like help open up your guys' relationship. And we would, since I had the book at home and he was gone, what I would do was I would email him a few of those questions. We picked a number of questions that we were like, gonna answer a week. And so I would email him the questions, and we would give each, like, ourselves a time frame, like, say, a week or a few days. Like, I think I had picked out 3 questions a week, and I'd send them to him in the beginning of the week, and then at the, like, either at the end of the week or when it's time for the next questions, that's when we would swap. Because we were emailing, so we also had books. We had like note paper and stuff, so no, actually not at this time. He would write the questions in his phone, write out his responses. He'd have like a week to respond, and then he would send his answers to me in an email at the end of the week, and I would do the same thing. I'd send him my answers, and then that would give us a chance to read what the other person had said about those questions, and then we would do more. That worked really well for us, especially when we were struggling, because again, communicating over long distance is hard, and especially when it comes to fighting, when like there's a lack of communication, that always brings up more fighting. You kind of have to learn how to fight long distance in a way, not necessarily fight, but that's when communicating comes in really important. You have to be able to talk without feeling like you're attacking the other person, but without like ignoring your feelings, because you owe it to yourself that you say what you need to, like, tell your partner your feelings and how everything's going, but also while they're in like a stressful situation or something, it's also kind of not fair to put everything on them. It's okay. See, this is where my bad communication's coming out. Communication is a really, really big thing. It has taken a lot of work for Chad and I to be at our level of communication. I love where we are communicating wise, because I am not afraid to tell him if I feel like something's wrong, and he is also not afraid. We have this thing that we say, like, are we in a safe place? And normally we say this if we are having a fight or something, or it's about to get heated. And are we in a safe place isn't because we think the other person's gonna hurt us or anything, but we say that, and it's like, when I hear that, I feel like I'm mentally stepping back and looking at the whole conversation. Like, the whole conversation is out in front of me. And I'm like, it makes me like really look and be like, am I only hearing what I want to hear, or am I hearing what he's saying? And am I being offended, or am I listening, Because that's where the safe place comes in. It's like we put each other in perspective of, oh, this is a hard conversation. Lots of feelings are going to come out, and sometimes hard feelings means you're defensive, or you get angry, or you latch onto one little thing which has like not really much importance, but to you it does. So that is why we use, are we in a safe place? And we use that phrase, like, to what I said, to make a step back, and it also allows the other person to say, hey, no, I'm not, and I don't think I can mentally put myself there, so let's put a pin in this conversation and come back when we are both level-headed. So that is a good question for communicating. Well, that works for us. I don't know if it'll work for you, but that is something that I find really important to ours, and I think that that's really important that other people find that, because sometimes you're not really listening to what's being said, you're more listening to what you want to hear, even if you're going to say, no, I don't do that, It happens, and I think it happens when you don't even realize it. I think like our brains get caught on a word or a phrase, and then that's where we go straight to offensive or defense, So think that you guys should come together as a couple and figure out what is a phrase that can be said in tough conversations to make sure that both parties are hearing what's being said and not just assuming. To be said where it can help help you realize that, oh, this is not a fight or flight thing. This is a conversation. Like, nothing bad's gonna happen. Well, that's not true. Anything bad can happen. But that is, like, my tips for communication. Is it the best tips? No. I'm still working on my communication. I'm getting better. And so is my husband. It's like, honestly really great to see the change and the growth that we've had. Communication is number one. You want communication. And that's hard. I think that's why people say long distance relationships are hard and you can't do it, is because it's just more work. Like, the communication, you have to put a lot more communication into a long distance, because most of the time that's all you have is communication. But that doesn't mean that, you know, it's the end of the relationship. There's so many other things that I've seen people talk about when it comes to dealing with long distance. Like, some people like to do a countdown. I did a countdown a lot in the beginning of our relationship, but I stopped doing that just because sometimes it's too much pressure on the end date. So I don't always do that. I do it sometimes, especially if they're like really long. But honestly, if the times apart that are really, really long, maybe don't go by days. Maybe start with like months or weeks, and then like right when it's like really close, you go down to days, because sometimes seeing that many days can be really disheartening and make it feel even worse. But I haven't done countdowns in a while, so that could help you, that could not. Oh, I've also heard people say that you should always have something planned to do when your partner gets home, or like an exciting thing, like a date night or something after. My husband and I don't do that. When my husband gets back from debts or deployments or whatnot, he needs to be home. Like, he needs to decompress. He's definitely not the type of person that is like, comes home one day and is out doing so much the next day. He is not that person. He needs his time to come back, because, you know, especially if your husband is in the military and they're deployed, or, you know, on super long debts, or, you know, something, you know, work trips, they're around people that are in the military, so they are talking to their coworkers constantly. And the way that they talk to their coworker is going to be a lot different than they talk to you or their friend or their family. So they're stuck on, I'm dealing with just my coworker. I can be a little bit more aggressive than dealing with a wife or a husband or a friend. They need their time to come back to what it's like to not live with your coworker. And for my husband, that is a few days at home. A few days of not seeing people and just hanging out at home. But on the other side, there is, you know, the person that was at home. They also deserve to do something that they want to do. Like me, I can't leave the house because I can't drive. So when my husband's gone, I don't leave my house. Don't leave my house. And that could be weeks, that could be months. So that is kind of hard to have him come home and then he wants to stay home for like weeks and weeks and weeks. If it was up to him, he'd probably never leave the house. But we have had to come to terms with, okay, we need to do what's healthy for you. So when he comes home, we spend a few days at home, and then we go do something outside. It doesn't have to be around people. Sometimes we just go on a walk, which is still nice for me. Sometimes we just walk around a store, which is also nice because I haven't, you know, been to a store in a while. Sometimes we go for a hike. Like, that's what I love to do. I just love to be in nature. So you just find things that help come back together. I know in deployments, or at least my husband has told me on his deployment, when the deployment is coming to an end and you are married, I guess, you have to go through these classes to be ready to be back with your spouse. I don't know if that's like that for every branch. I just know for sure that's what happens with my husband, is he had to go to I don't know if it was a week or 3-day class teaching you how to come back to being, you know, living with your spouse. I think that's really important, because being like the part of coming back and living together is also a lot harder than I think people think it is, because you've spent so much time away from this person. You have turned back to living alone. The person that is home is used to living alone and not having another person there. And the person that was gone is used to fending for themselves and living with a bunch of other people, a bunch of other coworkers. So you have to reintegrate, I think that's the word, back to each other. And that's hard. That is definitely a challenge for some people. I think it's a challenge for everyone, just some people it's a little bit more challenging than others. So that is, because both of you are so excited, so freaking excited for you to be reunited that you don't realize the habits that you picked up and all of that. So coming together after a long time of being apart is also hard. So just be willing to have the rough conversations and communication. Now, I'm not saying I know everything, and I think I've kind of made that clear that I don't know everything. I'm not the perfect long distance partner. I'm trying, and I'm definitely a lot better than what I was 4 years ago, but I'm still learning, and I'm still open to learn. These are just things that have helped me and my husband, and I would not change my life for the world. I love my husband, and I will continue to do long distance. Is it hard? Yes. Is it emotionally draining? Yes, because that's my best friend. So of course I'm gonna have a hard time when he's gone. And if you guys want a video like this specifically for deployment, I can make one for deployment. I tried not to do really a deployment talk about this because I feel like a deployment is different than just being long distance. Sure, like I said, there's a few spots where I did talk about what it's like dealing with deployment, but I can talk about like long distance with deployment more if you guys are interested. Again, this isn't a how to deal with it. This is more just like advice, kind of, or like how I deal with long distance. Because it makes me really sad when people are like, I just can't do long distance. Long distance is too hard. Because it is hard, but it is so rewarding at the same time. Like, I feel like I am so lucky to be with my husband. And if that means that I have to do long distance, I'm going to do long distance. I get those hellos. Sure, I have to do goodbyes, which goodbyes are so hard. I don't think I really have to explain to people that goodbyes are really hard. And it doesn't matter how long the goodbye is. Like, my husband was just gone for like 2 weeks. That goodbye is just as hard as him being gone for a month. It's still hard. And that's something that I see a lot of people fight about. Like, oh, well, your husband's only gone for this long. Or, sorry, I keep saying husband. I know that there's like wives that leave too. I just see people complain. They're like, oh, well, your spouse is only gone for like a week. Mine's been gone for a year. Pain is pain. Pain is pain. Pain is pain. Why are we trying to say my pain is worse than your pain? I feel like we should be banding together and be like supportive. Your husband's gone for 2 weeks, a week. I'm so sorry. I know that that's hard. I know that goodbye stings just like any other one. Sure, maybe being gone for a year probably does feel a lot worse than just being gone for 2 weeks, but a goodbye is a goodbye, and goodbyes are extremely hard. But we get hellos. I get a hello, get to hug my husband, I get to kiss him, I get to feel all those butterflies all over again. It's kind of like seeing him for the first time again, and I will take those. If I have to be long distance for the rest of our relationship, I'll do it. Because those hellos are amazing. I'm not in this relationship just for those hellos, but those hellos definitely make this season of life easier. They're like my favorite thing in the world is when I get to see him again and say hello, and I get to see the dogs. So excited. My dogs freak out, especially Toby. Toby's such a daddy's boy. Like, he loves Chad and he gets so excited. Sometimes I'm like, who's more excited, me or the dog? But I love seeing my animals react to him being home again. I love the hellos. I like to make any debt, any time apart feel just as special because, it sucks. So I either decorate the house, or I get my husband a gift, or I make him a gift. Now, you don't have to do this. I'm not saying this is what you need to do. But I do it because I'm like, hey, you were gone. You did something that sucked. This is what I was doing. I was thinking of you. Here's I always clean the house. So here's a beautifully kept house. Here is a little gift because I was thinking of you. Or here, I made this because I was thinking of you. Or just anything like that. Here's a decorated house. Like, look, we've missed you. Like, just because you don't do that doesn't mean that you don't miss them or love them, but that is something that I do every time, all the time. I always make sure that he knows that he was missed and loved when he was gone. And I think that is something that is important to also do. So if you are long distance, do something like that. Like, show them that, like, remind them that they were missed, or remind them that you were thinking of them when you were gone. The reason I do this the most is because I was talking to my husband one time, and he was like, yeah, life just keeps going while I'm gone, and it feels like everyone forgot about me. And I was like, no one forgot about you. I didn't forget about you. So that's the reason I do it. You can figure out your own reason to do it, or maybe you don't do it at all. Do what you need to do to get through times apart, even if you're not a military spouse. My first relationship was long distance. I had a 2-year relationship, and a year and a half was most long distance. And that sucked. I only got to see him like once a year, or like once or twice before, he came and moved down. And that sucks just as much as a military relationship. But the most important thing is communication. Communication. Continue to live your life. Find a hobby. Find yourself a support system. And give yourself the time you need to, feel your feelings, but don't let them stop you from living your life. So yeah, that is my advice for long distance. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!